Bitcoin is about to drop 50% by this date. So is that even possible? Let's take a look at the charts and see what they say. Before we do that, quick market update. This is midday. The Dow is up about 1%, S&P up almost 1%, NASDAQ up 0.64, the laggard today when it was up the most yesterday. Like I said, nice little bounce expected again today, but this might be the extent of it as the markets have worked their way down into the interest rate hikes, CPI reports. We have earnings coming out, kind of looking decent across the board so far, keeping things on the positive. The next thing we have to look forward to is the next interest rate hike by the Fed, which is probably 0.75, 75 basis points, 0.75%. But here's the issue. Bond yields are still up 4% on the 10-year, over 4% on the 2-year. So that's keeping markets under pressure. I would have liked to seen the bond yields come down. Let's take a look at some other things here before we jump into Bitcoin, which is on the daily here. And I'll show you why I'm saying it's going to potentially drop 50% here pretty soon. But right now, if we look at the VIX, VIX is kind of crawling around here. The Dixie still kind of working its way up and consolidating here a little bit. And then, of course, here is the Dow working this little bounce here before the next leg down. NASDAQ, same thing. S&P, same thing. Still another leg down yet to come in the markets because of what's going on with the Fed having to raise interest rates and just all the other things that we have in the economy, including inflation. But here's why I'm saying this. So here's where we are right here on Bitcoin right now. 50% from here obviously would be around $10,000, right? Plus or minus. We've been consolidating. Bitcoin's been kind of holding this tight little range here at the previous all-time high of about 19,000 plus or minus. That's the 2017 previous all-time high. Not really getting much above it here lately or going below it much, wicks here and there, but not participating in broad market rallies when the traditional markets are rallying and bouncing around. Bitcoin's been kind of holding steady. And here's where we're at. So the top was in November of 2021. And then currently, obviously, this is October. So if we go back to 2017, I was talking about the previous all-time high, you can see price is just below on Bitcoin. This red line is below the previous all-time high right now. In 2017, that came in December. And then the area that we're in right now would be about October timeframe, right in this area here. It just flatlined in October. September had a little bit, well, this was August, had a little bit of volatility, a little, rally in July, kind of like we had in the stock markets, a little bit of volatility through the end of August. But once Bitcoin got into September 2021, it basically flatlined from September through October until November. I guess that's about 14th, 13th, 14th is when it started heading downhill. And it dropped from that point 50%, actually a little bit more. Let's look at it here, about, well, right at 50% before it finally bottomed. And the bottom came in on December of 2018, 1 year later from the peak. So if we fast forward to where we're at today, and like we said, the peak recently came in November of 2021. So that could potentially put the bottom in around November of 2022 to December of 2022, basically a year later. So somewhere in that November, December timeframe. But again, that next leg down last time came in, that final capitulation came in around, what was that? November 14th of 2018. So that top came in December. So basically a month behind. So you could say end of October, and there are some market analysts calling for a big drop and the next leg down by the end of October, because the Fed's next interest rate hike might just put enough pressure on financial markets where there is a break in the system that could cause a big capitulation, which ultimately may lead to a Fed response in some way, which could lead to a market reaction. But right now we're in October 18th. So somewhere around the next couple of weeks to the end of the month, getting into November timeframe is when you could see that event. And if that was the case and markets dropped 50% from here, Not saying this is absolutely going to happen, but it's just kind of lining up just like it did in 2018, to where this is a potential and a likely possibility, not guaranteed, not saying it's going to, not predicting, but it is possible, and it is a potential to drop around 50%. That would put it right around $10,000 plus or minus $10,000. And there's a lot of other technical confluence that could say from a previous support level that that is a reasonable good target. That's all of this right in here that would be a big major market structural support that would most likely hold up the price of Bitcoin. Now, it's held up well here with a lot of traditional market volatility, bad CPI reports, interest rate hikes, all of that, a lot of volatility, but it's kind of leveling off. And if you go back to 2017, a lot of volatility on the way down until it got into that September, October, November timeframe, and it was fairly flat, the price of Bitcoin, and just kind of hovered in there in that $6,000 to $7,000 range, had a wick low down to 6,000, had a wick high to about 6,700. So really that was a tight range, in the 6,000, just under 7,000 range, and then ultimately just kind of leveled off and then fell off that cliff right there. Again, that started on November of 2018. So are we going to see that again? It's possible. So right now we are a month behind. Bitcoin's a month behind this cycle. Peak came in December of 2017. The bottom came in December of 2018. So the current peak came in, wait a minute, sorry, here we go. The current peak came in November of 2021. So does that mean the bottom will come in 1 year later, November of 2022? Could be towards the end of the year. We don't really know, but that's just one of the possibilities that is very likely. The other thing we take a look at is this 200-week moving average. Bitcoin has always found support pretty much on the 200-week moving average as long as it's been in history. Not a whole lot of history because obviously it's a newer asset. It's only existed since 2009. But each time it's pretty much held at wick below a little bit. This is the first time it's ever rejected and spent a lot of time declining, steadily going down underneath the 200-week moving average. So that's not good news for this asset. But again, if it does drop down to that 10,000 range, there's a lot of support there. I know there's a lot of interest there. I think that's where a real good buying opportunity could come in, because we've seen worst case scenario the last few times that Bitcoin maybe drop down to 4,000 if there's a big major financial issue, crack, crisis, whatever you want to say. You could possibly see it, down to those levels. And I know there's some people calling for that, but 10,000 seems realistic. It seems probable, and it seems more likely than any kind of a rebound right now to any kind of higher levels for Bitcoin, just given current economic financial conditions, tightening financial conditions. The Fed has not done. Inflation has not cracked, peaked, come backwards. It is going up. Energy prices are going up in the winter. Food prices are still up. Gasoline's going up. So there's still a lot of inflationary pressures. Rents are still going up. I know there's a lot of reports out there and people talking about rents plateauing. But I work with people all over the country that are buying multifamily assets, buying homes, and they're buying them to raise the rents. That's what the business plan is. So rents are still under pressure in a lot of markets. There are some markets where rents are coming down, things like that. But the markets where people want to be, where they're moving into, there's a lot of pressure on rental prices right now. A lot of people bought these properties. A lot of investors over the last several years. Grant Cardone, he buys multifamily properties. His business plan, he's a syndicator, just like a lot of people that I coach and work with. The business plan is you buy the property, you raise the rents to add value so that you can hopefully exit the property. So everything is based on raising rents. And there's been a record number of multifamily transactions over the last few years, a lot of single family homes that have been bought by investors that are renting, and a lot of pressure on those prices. So rent has not come down at scale like a few of the economists and analysts are saying. And they're talking about how it lags, and that's why inflation is still high. But gas prices are going up, food's still up. So they're and the war in Ukraine is still serious with escalation. You have Taiwan, North Korea. You've got a lot of different issues out there from a global macroeconomic geopolitical front that presents headwinds to the market. So there's a lot of analysts saying we may not see new highs or even getting back to all-time highs for 10 years in traditional markets. I don't know if I agree with that. I know that there's a lot of capital on the sideline, a lot of ammunition ready to come into the markets at the right time when the dust settles, when the Fed stops what they're doing, not necessarily a pivot, but just stops and says, hey, we're done, and inflation starts to come down, that's going to be where we can start to find a bottom and put a bottom in. Everything else are bear market rallies, and there's just no real catalyst to drive markets to new all-time highs right now, but nice bounces just like we've seen here in traditional markets last few days. So anyways, that is what I am looking at, and I will see you on the next video.